All right, we are live, but we will let it breathe just for a moment here to bring on Facebook, our awesome Facebookers. We're about to get things started, and I'm dealing with a little bit of a setup difference here. I was just complaining to Ron how I got one of these standing desks, and I'm really stoked on it because I spend so much time at the computer all day long, and I can stand. And I put it in today, but so my whole setup's different. But if I even touch the desk, see what happens to the camera? I shake and that applies to using the mouse. That applies to the. So bear with me while I iron out the kinks. But hey guys, welcome in. This is the Orange and Blue View. I'm Chad Jensen. That's Ron White. We're here to break down your Denver Broncos on the doorstep of Ron, the Green Bay Packers, who are coming into town as favorites over a team that's 11-2, that has won 10 in a row and hasn't lost since whatever, week 6 or week 8 of 2024. In what world does it make sense, Ron, for the Broncos to be underdogs at home in this situation? I would understand if it was on the road. Yes. In Denver, how do you make sense of that?
Yeah, Chad, it doesn't make sense. It doesn't make sense. And again, hey everyone, thank you for tuning in. But yeah, it does not make sense at all. But at the end of the day, a lot of the bettors there they're still not believers in the Broncos. And I think this is more, Chad, that they trust Matt LaFleur, Jordan Love, and what the Green Bay Packers can do, because that is a solid team. Jordan Love with Jalen Reed, Christian Watson, Josh Jacobs, and Michael Parsons. They do have a real good team. And I think, they're basing it off of kind of what they've done over the past few games. I think they're on a 4-game winning streak. So, but it's going to be a tough challenge. But, this Denver Broncos team, they haven't lost at home since last year. And I do think, although the test is going to be tough tomorrow, I do think the Broncos have a good shot to win this game.
Just for craps and giggles, Ron, real quick, I'm reminding myself, I thought it was week 6 last year was the last home loss. Let's see. Yeah, dude.
Yeah. Was that
Because
the Chargers game?
Yeah, it was Chargers at home
Mhm.
last year.
Mhm.
Exactly. So I don't know. It's kind of irritating. We'll put a pin in that for a moment, guys. I feel like now when I look at you guys at the camera, I'm like peering way up into the sky. This is so weird for me. Sorry. But a shout out to the supporters and the members that are in the chat tonight, like Papa Bear checking in with the spirit of Christmas on his mind and in his heart. Thank you, Papa Bear. Great to see you, big dog. He says, Merry Christmas, Broncos country. Love 13-4 plus 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 plus. We all know what it means. Hashtag God bless the USA. Thank you, big dog. So good to see you this Saturday night. We got David Cromelo in the house. This man is a hard worker. I tell you what, he gets after it on his podcast. And anytime I go to the Senior Bowl, he's there on the grind doing his thing. It's great to see you, big dog. Thank you for the super chat. It says the Packers are arguably the most balanced team the Broncos have played so far this season. And there's a reasonable chance Denver loses 3 of the last 4. A reasonable chance, yeah, but like I think, Ron, we blew reason. We blew well past reason a long time ago. I mean, this team has won 10 straight games. Like, who on planet Earth saw that coming? I will tell you, nobody. I would say though, you're pretty true on this, D-Crom. But Ron, I would also say that the Eagles, they weren't quite playing as well. Still early in the season, but not that early. It was week 5. They were a pretty balanced team, and look at where they're at now. But what are your thoughts here for D-Crom?
Yeah, D-Crump, thank you for coming in. I appreciate it. You're right. You make a fair statement. That Denver can lose the next 3 of their 4 games. They could also win the next 3 of their 4 games. And it does help that 3 of those 4 remaining games are at home. And what are the Broncos at home since last year? Undefeated. So, I see what you're coming from. I do see your point. The Packers, again, taking nothing away from what Matt LaFleur, Jordan Love, Josh Jacobs, Micah Parsons, and that squad has done this year. They have been a great team, and they've been a great team for the past several years. But, you know, given what you've seen from the Broncos this year, and kind of what they've done at home, again, we know what the defense represents for Denver and how, Chad, the offense has gotten better over the past few weeks. Again, it's probably not where you want to be, but you kind of want to at least show signs of improvement as you're, getting toward the end of the season and into the playoffs. And you're seeing that now with Bo Nix and RJ Harvey. So yeah, I see your point, but they can also very well win 3 of the next 4 games too.
Yeah, I mean, you compare what they're facing down the stretch here, David, to what the Patriots are facing with we're a bottom 3 team schedule this season, right? Because, hey, kudos to them. I was talking about it today on Broncos Book Club with the members. Kudos to them for taking care of their schedule, but the Broncos are playing a playoff schedule, a team that made the playoffs last year schedule, while the Patriots are playing about as softball of a schedule as it gets. Now, 2 of their final 4, Ron, are pretty hairy. I could see them losing 2 more, possibly more, because my mindset on the Patriots is more like what the national mindset is on the Broncos. I'm not convinced. Like, I'm still a little bit skeptical just because it is a young quarterback. Yeah, Vrabel's an experienced head coach, but he hasn't really won anything. And I don't think they've really played anybody. Nevertheless, it doesn't matter, Ron. The schedule is the schedule. The standings are the standings. They got to take on Buffalo. They got to take on the Ravens. I could see them losing both those games. Now, if they beat Buffalo, I'm going to take them a lot more seriously as like a bona fide, force to be reckoned with in the AFC. The Broncos, meanwhile, they got to not only play the Packers non-conference tomorrow, but then they got to play the freaking Jags, Kansas City, in Kansas City. Look, Kansas City's not the Kansas City, Ron, of 2024, but it's still Mahomes. It's still Reed. It's still Kelsey. It's still Chris Jones. Like, that's still a very good team that somehow just got up on the wrong side of the bed this season. Like, who knows how and why it happened. All we know is we're here for it. Thank you. And then you got to close out, Ron, with the Chargers in Denver, though. That's a tough final row to hoe, but I'm still confident in this team because they just continue to find ways to win. So anyway, thank you, D. Crom. Shannon, a dear member, jumping in with a very generous super chat. Really appreciate you, my friend. Great to see you tonight. Says, good evening. The Broncos at home are tough to beat. This will be a challenge, but like Jake Butt, you feel me? I think with the defense putting pressure on Love and Nix maneuvering
the way he has,
the Broncos win. Yeah, dude. I think, Ron, Bo Nix, he's kind of due for a big game. Like, statistically, he's done much better since that Thursday night game against the Raiders where he played so poorly and he got a bunch of bad blowback. He has played much, much better these last couple of games, 3 games. But oddly enough, Ron, the touchdowns haven't been there. He's scored on the ground. He's thrown 1 over that span. And if he throws 1 more, he'll become the 5th quarterback in Broncos history to post back-to-back seasons of 20 passing touchdowns, joining guys like John Elway, Peyton Manning. I think he's due for a big kind of statistic game, like Sean Payton in the red zone. Watch out for Bo Nix throwing the ball.
I agree, Chad. And again, Shannon, thank you for coming in. I greatly appreciate it. Yeah, I think this needs to be a nice balanced game. Run and pass. Again, you saw what happened with the Raiders last week, which was great, sustaining those long drives, running the ball at will with RJ Harvey. But you also want to see Knicks do it in the air. You want to see those touchdowns come back. So I do expect, the ground game to continue to improve with Harvey. I did like what I saw last week against the Raiders, but also you want the passing game to be a factor. And I do think this week, Chad, Sean Payton's going to scheme up some things for Knicks to throw some touchdowns, specifically in the red zone. And also, Shannon, to your point, the D putting pressure on Love. I do think that's going to happen. Now, according to the analytics, Jordan Love has been one of the better quarterbacks against man coverage. And that's what VJ loves. So I think, VJ is just going to have to confuse him a bit, maybe employ some simulated pressures to get him off his spot.
Yeah.
but I do think, I do like the Broncos' chances given this defense, and it's at home with the crowd. I do think the Broncos are definitely gonna come up big here.
I'll tell you the deciding factor to me. If you guys read the Mile High Roundtable, you saw that I picked the Broncos, and I'll tell you what the deciding factor was here in just a second, guys. Lots more to get to, including many more of your comments and super chats. But first, listen up, guys. Here we are in the holiday season, and you got to take care of your mental health. It's shouldn't be harder than taking care of your physical health. If you think about it, if you pull a muscle or you're suddenly your back starts hurting, you go and see a doctor. But when it comes to finding the right therapist, suddenly it's frustrating. You're dealing with the long waiting lists, or you have to confront huge out-of-pocket costs. And any one of these factors, Ron, can stop people from getting the help they need.
Yes, that's where Ruler comes in. Ruler makes it simple, affordable, and fast. They work with most major insurance plans, and the average session copay is just $15. $15, you say? That's basically the cost of lunch, but instead of a sandwich, you're investing in your own headspace.
And guys, with Rula, you're not just matched with a therapist and left to figure it out. They check in, they make sure that you're actually making progress. Every therapist on the platform is licensed, vetted, and picked for their expertise. So you know you're talking to someone legit, not just whoever happens to be available.
So that's right. Getting started couldn't be any easier. You answer a few quick questions about what matters to you, and Rula connects you with in network providers who actually fit your needs. You pick the time, and you could be talking to a therapist as soon as the next day. No weeks of waiting, no endless back and forth. Bottom line, if you've been putting this off, Rula takes away the excuses. Simple, affordable, and actually built to help you get better.
Thousands of guys have already used Rula to finally get the care that they needed. Don't keep putting it off. Go to rula.com/mile high and get started today. That's RULA.com/mile high. Take the first step, get connected, and take control of your mental health. All right, back to the chat we go. We got David Youngkin checking in, which, by the way, I guess I got to tell you the distinguishing factor for me and why I felt the warm and fuzzy. Because when we make these picks, Ron, what are we doing? We're going with our gut. We weigh it out over
Mhm.
the week. We chew on it. We hem, we haw. And then we finally make the pick, whatever our pick may be. And it's kind of based on gut. And what was giving me that last little bit of oomph and warm and fuzzy and like, oof, Broncos are going to win this is the fact that the odds makers set them up as home dogs. Hearing what Sean Payton said on Wednesday, hearing what Bo Nix said, hearing what other guys like Dre Greenlaw said about being home underdogs. I think the Broncos are looking to prove themselves big time
Mhm.
against the Packers. And Green Bay, they're not going to like it. You remember like Wade Phillips when they were beating the snot out of Tom Brady in the AFC Championship game?
Mhm.
And Von Miller would come running off the field after a successful sack, and Wade Phillips be like, he don't like it. He don't like it, right? And Tom Brady's like
Yeah.
hating it out there. David Young, that's how the Packers are going to feel tomorrow. David Youngkin, brother, thank you for being a member and your support. If the Pats lose, he says, and the Broncos lose, would we still be in control of the AFC? I believe so, Ron, but I got to
Mhm.
double check. Go ahead and answer him. I'll double check it. Yeah,
Yeah.
because
So they would be.
AFC North, 6 losses, Jags, 4 losses. So, yes.
Correct. Yeah. So again, David, thank you for coming in. So your Broncos will still be in control, um, and still control their own destiny for that number one seed. Um, but I think after this week, you would also want to see, you know, another loss from New England to kind of solidify that. I know they have the Ravens, and one of these division opponents could play spoiler. I mean, I know the Jets and the Dolphins, aren't great teams in their division, but one of them could be playing spoiler in the coming weeks. But yeah, Broncos still would control their own destiny as that number one seed.
Yeah. So, real quick, the final 4 games for the Patriots: Buffalo in New England tomorrow,
Mhm.
then on the road at Baltimore, and Baltimore still has something to play for, so
Fighting
we'll
chance.
we'll see. Then on the road at the Jets, and then home closing out against the Dolphins. So this is why, as you read these articles Eric puts out each week this late in the season about the rooting interests each week, you actually want the Dolphins to keep winning. You want the Ravens to keep winning only because you need and want them to have something to play for when they cross paths with the Patriots. So keep that in mind. And by the way, thank you again, David. Before we get too deep into this episode, guys, we got to talk real quick here, Ron, about the actual headline of tonight's stream, which is the flurry of roster moves the Broncos made. Now, in season, it's common, and it in fact is the usual for the Broncos to make a couple of roster moves the night before a game because they're elevating two guys from the practice squad each week. They can elevate two guys. They do it almost every game. In this instance, though, there was a flurry of things. So per the press release, and by the way, Zach had the article right up for us at milehighhuddle.com. Go read the article. But the Broncos promoted inside linebacker rookie Jordan Turner to the 53 because he was out of elevation. So they had maxed out. It was like they either had to sign him to the 53 or they'd have to waive him after the game. So he was signed to the 53. They elevated Michael Bandy and Sam Ehlinger to the 53-man roster for the game against the Packers. And then also Mercedes Lewis, Ron, passed through the waiver wire, signed back to the practice squad. So he stays in the fold.
Yep. And regarding the Michael Bandy elevation, we know because Pat Bryant's been ruled as out, he's going to come in and help. And also Bandy does help with special teams as well. That was probably the nod as to why he got it over Elijah Moore. I know some people were asking about Elijah Moore. So that helped there. And then obviously with waiving of Mercedes Lewis, but back on the practice squad, Nate Atkins is now ready to go.
Yep.
So that's good. It kind of sucks, Pat Bryant, Chad, with the hamstring, but you always got to be careful with those things just because he's been playing so well. But it's good that Bandy's been elevated for tomorrow.
Shout out, Big Earn. Good to see you, pal. Broncos country only, indeed. We got David Yunkin jumping in again, buddy. Thank you for the super chat love. Really means a lot to us, brother. He says the Pats had a home game before the bye and a home game after the bye. How lucky was that? Yeah, it's lucky, but remember, kind of like, everybody knew the Broncos would be playoff relevant this year after what we saw last season. Nobody saw the Broncos being the 1 seed entering week 15. Like, very few people foresaw that. But even fewer people, Ron, saw the Patriots basically being in a tie situation for the 1 seed this deep into the season. So, look, they've been helped, though, by, as I mentioned earlier, virtue of their relatively soft schedule. This is what they faced this season. They lost to the Raiders, by the way. That's how they opened the season. So it wasn't looking great to start things, but they lost to the Steelers. They beat the Panthers. They beat the Bills on the road, which, by the way, that was a big win for them. And then after that, it's kind of like, it's Saints, Titans, Browns, Falcons. Bucks was a tougher matchup, but the Bucks, Ron, have really regressed the second half of the season. And but still, give it to them. The Bucks were a legit team in week 10. They beat them. Then they beat the Jets. They beat the Bengals. I'm trying to remember week 12 that preceded Burrow's return. So that was the Joe Flacco Bengals, by the way. And then they beat the Giants handily at home, as you mentioned, David. Hit the bye. Now they come out of the bye, playing at home. That's the NFL looking out for what had been for the preceding 2 or 3 years, Ron, a basement-dwelling franchise.
Yeah, and again, David, thank you for coming in. And again, the Patriots have been helped out with their easy strength of schedule, and not to take anything away from what they've done this year, Chad. Vrabel has these guys playing exceptionally well.
Yep.
Josh McDaniels with Drake May has been great. Stephon Diggs, Stevenson and Henderson, and Christian Gonzalez as well. They've been playing very well, and you can only beat who's in front of you, but they just have yet to be challenged. As you mentioned, that Bills game early in the season, was a good win for them. We'll see how that goes again tomorrow at home for them. But I just think in the playoffs, let's say, Chad, that New England has to go against, let's say, they end up being a number 2 seed wild card round. They have to go against the Houston Texans. I
Yeah.
don't think that's going to be a good matchup because the Houston Texans defense is solid. Like, they're
Yeah.
just worldly. And I
Yeah.
do think, the Houston Texans can definitely win that game. So again, it's all about, matchups, who you play when. But again, they've been playing very well this season, but they just have yet to be tested, in my opinion, where the Broncos have. The
Yeah.
Broncos have played the number 1 offense at the time in Dallas, the number 1 defense in Houston, the Eagles, the Chiefs. So they have a little bit better of a resume when it comes to the wins over New England.
Excellent point. And look, to me, I know there's a reason why teams covet the 1 seed, right? They get home field advantage throughout. That's the most important thing. It's not so much that they get the bye, it's that they get home field every game. That's what they really covet. But the reason I have mixed feelings about it is, and then we're going to grab this dear member Sonny's question here. But the reason I have mixed feelings about the importance of the 1 seed is there are arguments for and against, I will allow, but some of the Broncos' most devastating playoff losses of the 21st century have come after getting the bye. So I think back, for example, to the 2005 Broncos, who should have been in the Super Bowl. And if they make that Super Bowl against the Seahawks, they win it. Like, they're going all the way. But Jake Plummer in the AFC Championship game in Denver, who I love. You guys know my love for Jake Plummer. He's one of my favorite Broncos of all time. Turns in arguably his worst game as a pro. They lose. Now, granted, they had high seeding, but I can't remember exactly if they had a bye now that I think about it. So that might not have been the greatest example. However, actually, yeah, they had the wild card bye. Now, we come back because that was the title game. We go, Ron, to 2012, number 1 seed, first round bye. They come out flat, get shellacked, shocked, I should say, by the Ravens. Then the next year, hey, they go all the way to the Super Bowl. So that kind of offsets 2012 in terms of the first round bye thing. Then the next year, right, 2014, they get the bye, divisional round. Andrew Luck comes in, and he's going to be the newfangled Joe Flacco and send Peyton Manning home one and done in the playoffs. And then, of course, that was offset the next year by the Super Bowl 50 team. So there's arguments for and against. I kind of like, Ron, that you stay in it. You don't have any breaks. Like, you stay in whatever zone you're in going into the playoffs. I prefer that than taking the breaks off and getting the bye. So we'll see. But I do know the one thing I won't ever argue, Ron, home field advantage is important.
Yeah, and that's I do see that side, Chad. I don't totally disagree with you. But I think for me, I like the bye because you want to make sure everyone's rested. Now, I get the argument, some people may have too much rest. There might be rust coming into the divisional round, but
Yeah,
just solidifying, making sure that all teams that are remaining have to go through Denver.
yeah,
Because you skip a game. That's another thing. Like, your 2 games, if you win your 2 games, you're essentially in the Super Bowl. So
true.
just missing that 1 game in wild card, because again, you don't know who that matchup is going to be. Again, it
Yeah,
could be a Houston Texans. And I don't know if I would want that on wild card weekend. Again, I know it's in Denver and we've beaten them early in the season, but I think the way they're playing now, I wouldn't want them to come to Denver, face them in the wild card round.
which, by the way, the Broncos haven't beaten anybody. All right. They beat both Super Bowl teams. All right. They beat the Texans. That Texans win sure looking a lot more clutch than it did even at the time, right? And just as a reminder, the Broncos did have J.K. Dobbins in that game. He had a solid game, not a great game, but a solid game. Bo Nix, 173 yards passing, 2 touchdowns, a pick. RJ had a reception touchdown. Sutton had a touchdown. And the Broncos did benefit in that game. Not that they tried to, but they did benefit, in my opinion, Ron, by C.J. Stroud going down with the concussion. Mills actually played very, very well, and he would go on to keep them in the game. Like, literally, like, after this game, stay in the playoff race. Like, he deserves a lot of credit for doing the heavy lifting while Stroud was out. but he hadn't had all week to practice with the ones. There's that kind of withdraw factor that happens when the starter goes down, especially at quarterback, and the new guy comes in. So the Broncos did benefit from that. What I'm getting at is it wasn't a perfect apples to apples win because Stroud didn't play the entire game. But I would say, honestly, Mills played better in relief of Stroud than Stroud was playing before he got hurt. That's my objective take on it for what it's worth. But that win, Ron, sure looking a lot more impressive and solid sitting here going into week 15 than people were giving the Broncos credit for back in week 9 for what it's worth. Now, Sonny, are we Chiefs fans tomorrow? Well, we're not Chiefs fans, but yes, you want the Chiefs to win because they are, of course, playing the Chargers. So that's in Kansas City. Go Chiefs for obvious reasons there. You want the Bills to beat the Patriots. You want the Ravens to beat the Bengals only because, again, you want the Ravens to have something to play for when they face the Patriots the next week. Cardinals at Texans, pretty obvious. You want the Cardinals to beat the Texans if possible and just hopefully, Ron, push them further and further down. Jets at Jaguars, same reasons above. You want the Jets to win. It's probably not going to happen, but talk about unconvincing plus 500 teams. Jaguars, anybody. And then Dolphins, Steelers. Honestly, you want the Dolphins to win, not so much because you're all that afraid of the Steelers, but you want them to have something to play for against the Patriots in the finale. So there you have it in terms of your rooting interest tomorrow. Appreciate you, Sonny. Now, Phil's jumping in here, Ron. He says, good evening, Chad and Ron. Keeping my fingers crossed that we have a running game tomorrow and we put Love on the ground. So, Ron, I want to know how you feel about the run game tomorrow, knowing that this Packers defense, they rank 9th against the run, relinquishing 101.4 yards per game.
Yeah. Then, Phil, thank you for coming in. I do feel good about the run game tomorrow, Phil. I don't think it's going to be maybe many as yards a carry as they did last week, but I do think they still need to stay committed to it. Again, RJ Harvey did run the ball very well last week, and I do expect for him to, have a good day. Again, maybe not breaking up some of those big runs, but again, I do think you can maybe see 4 yards a carry, just keep it steady to kind of calm down that pass rush and make sure you keep Micah Parsons at bay. So I do think that that's definitely an important factor here. And yeah, Phil, I mentioned it, I'm not sure you caught it at the top, but yeah, that last portion of just putting Love on the ground. I think that's where, VJ has to get very exotic with some of the blitzes, some of the simulated pressures, and get him to the ground because, again, when he has time in the pocket against man coverage, he will just dice a defense up. So I think that is crucial.
Well said, my brother. Shout outs. Thank you again, Phil. It's great to see you. A dear member, Pro16, saying it's 65 degrees at kickoff. Should be a wonderful game. Plus, we are honoring Philip Lindsay in the second quarter. No way we lose. I love it. I love it. Yeah, perfect winter football weather. Like, it doesn't get better weather in mid-December than that in the Mile High City. That's for sure. Shout out to Mark Kennedy on Facebook. Good to see you, pal. And then in Oz, checking in from literally the future. It is tomorrow in Australia. Good to see you, Chris Parr. Thank you for the super chat, big dog. He says, Ron, he wants to know, what will it take for the Broncos to get even a small amount of respect from the media? And it's funny you asked this question, Chris, because I was talking about this today with the members on Broncos book club. We didn't have a book to go through, so I mostly just we just talked football, like what's going on. And anyhow, what will it take? Kind of the same, Ron, in my opinion, as the 2015 Broncos. If you guys think back, everybody was off the Peyton Manning train. He missed a lot of games because he was injured. When he was on the field, he just didn't look the same. It was clear he was close to being done. A lot of the games they won had a similar complexion as the ones this season in that they weren't just beating the living you-know-what out of guys. They were, fighting hard down to the wire type of games. And then they had a great defense, very similar to this season. No one really got on the horse, Ron, and started beating their chest for the Broncos until Elway went, this one's for Pat. In other words, they had to literally go the whole distance for the NFL at large as a media, entity, zeitgeist, whatever you want to call it, to give them their just reward and say, you know what? Holy smokes, the Broncos just went the distance, beat a team that was heavily favored in the Super Bowl. Peyton Manning, like playing with one half of his body basically tied behind his back because he had just what's a good way to put it, Ron? Old man, father time took his toll, whatever. It was clear though, he was not the same guy from even a season before. But until they went like this and hoisted it and the clock hit 0-0, Broncos win, then out of the woodwork come everybody going, oh, look at everything they built. John Elway, Ron, faces and Peyton Manning faces embarrassment in Super Bowl 48, rebuilds the roster for a defensive-oriented thing, brings in Gary Kubiak, and he gets to retire as a champion just like his boss John Elway did, blah, blah. We weren't hearing that kind of thing before they won the Super Bowl, and it's probably going to be the same this year, that you won't see it if and until and unless they win it all.
I don't have any. I'm going to add one thing, Chad, because you summed it up perfectly. They're going to get their respect when Bo Nix wins Super Bowl MVP.
Yeah.
that about sums it up here, Chris, because, I don't know what else is going to take. I mean, again, this long winning streak at home, they're beating teams. You mentioned it, Chad. They're beating teams closely.
Yeah.
All season. And, they're vying for this number 1 seed. So I don't know what else the Broncos can do. I know a lot of the hate, disrespect is more so on the Bo Nix front. And until he kind of, makes his way through the playoffs and gets to the Super Bowl and balls out in that Super Bowl and winning that, the Broncos are still going to have the same amount of respect as they do now.
Let them hate, Chris. Let them hate. It just wouldn't feel like Bronco land unless the perception was that the whole world's out to get you. Like, I think the Broncos operate better in this sleeper, kind of under the radar disrespect mode. It's a whole different thing entirely when you become like the favorite. You guys can remember, like with Peyton Manning, it's a lot of pressure when you're just assumed to win every single game for the most part. And eventually that pressure can get to teams, as we saw again, as I mentioned earlier, 2012 playoffs, 2014 playoffs, and of course, Super Bowl 48. So anyway, thank you, Chris. We got Shannon Mills jumping back in again with another generous super chat. You rule. Thank you, Shannon. He says, I think that getting the bye with Peyton as a coach would be very different. I think they would be prepared after the bye. You could have a point. I mean, Gary Kubiak's Broncos got the bye. And that first game, if you guys can recall, Ron, back in the 2015 season, that first playoff game against the Steelers, it was pretty touch and go until Bradley Roby punched that ball out. The Steelers were about to score, and it was going to get real hairy. And then everything kind of went our way. But Shannon might have a point here. Peyton does well coming out of the bye. He's talked a lot about how he picked Andy Reid's brain years ago when he was with the Saints about the bye, and has put it to good use over the years. I would say, Ron, for what it's worth, well, what was the bye? Week 12 this season. So did they look week 13 like a team that was well rested and got everything they needed? Not really. That Washington game was pretty leaky. I mean, Bo Nix played really well. The offense did some – they played much better than, say, even the Kansas City game or the previous Raiders game, but the defense – hasn't even quite looked the same, to be honest with you, Ron, since before the bye. It's every game after the bye, the defense in its own ways looked a little bit leaky, which makes me a little uncomfortable. But your thoughts here that with Peyton as the coach, the bye is more of an advantage.
Yeah. And Shannon, thank you again for coming in. And I agree here, Shannon. I think Peyton being the coach and the fact that it's at home, I think the Broncos are going to be very well equipped and prepared going into whoever's coming to town. I just think, Chad, this team is just they're ready. I don't think the moment's going to be too big for them. Peyton's definitely going to get them ready. Have talks with them just to make sure that they are, very on their P's and Q's to get things going on offense and defense, because again, depending on the opponent, you just can't come out slow. And you saw that with the Washington game, as you mentioned. Again, on offense, it was good, but man, on defense, run defense in particular, it was rough going. It was rough going there. But I do think, given the opponent, Peyton's going to have these guys very prepared to go with that week's rest.
Shannon, thank you again, big dog. Really appreciate you. Sonny says Zach picked the Packers. Yeah, in the round table. Now, remember, guys, our job in the round table isn't to try and wish something into existence. Our job is to call it like we see it. And then as you get late in the season like this, you're trying to, some strategy comes into play so you can get the bragging rights and have the best record on staff at the end, picking Bronco games. Right now, there's some big ties going on. But I want to say, let me see here. Zach, was there anyone else that picked the Packers? Zach is the only one on staff.
Zach, the only one. Yeah.
And here's what he said. I'll just read it to you. Because again, this isn't Zach going, I want the Packers to win. This is Zach saying, here's kind of how I feel. Quote, only a few times this season have I genuinely been torn on a prediction. This is one of those times. And I've felt this way for weeks now. The Broncos are due for a loss. In parentheses, he writes, you can superstitiously argue it's better to lose right now for the playoffs, meaning like before the playoffs, one more loss, give up the ghost, do away with the whole winning streak pressure, all that. And this Green Bay team is light years better than Washington or Vegas. It's going to be a rock fight, he writes, and it'll come down to the fourth quarter per usual. Neither Green Bay nor Denver will have anything to hang their head for afterward. But for the sake of being a jinx, in other words, what he's saying too is like, hopefully I jinx it. It serves as a jinx and they win because I'm picking Packers. He wants the Broncos to win. In other words, here, Ron.
Yeah. Yeah. And again, we give these predictions, based on what we've seen, some of the matchups, how the Broncos and the opponent has been playing over the past several weeks. And, would I be surprised if the Packers come out victorious tomorrow? No. Again, they're a great team. They have an elite play caller, Matt LaFleur. Jordan Love is playing some of his best ball. Now, it's going to be interesting, Chad, to see, because I know Josh Jacobs is questionable.
Mm-hmm.
So that may, tip the scales there a bit, depending on if he can go or not. I know they've promoted one off the practice squad to come up.
Yeah, because the number 2 guy's sick too, suddenly, right?
Yeah, number 2 guy is sick as well. I think it's Wilson, that he was on the Broncos, I believe. Yeah. So, he's sick out with the illness. But it's going to be interesting to see, if he plays or not, how that changes things, because that Josh Jacobs has been the Broncos' bugaboo over the past several years. But
undefeated.
Again, so undefeated. Yeah. So it's gonna be a good game, gonna be a rock fight. Again, Zach is entitled to his prediction, but I'm on the other end of it. I do think Broncos are gonna show up and show out tomorrow.
Wouldn't be shocked with the loss, of course, but I'm telling you, my gut is like they picked the Broncos at home to be the underdog. And it's not a huge, it's 2.5 points, right? But so it's not like it's this huge, oh my gosh. But I'm telling you, Broncos are going to be hot tomorrow under the collar. Like they're going to be, let's prove some fools wrong here. David jumping in again. Thank you, pal. Even us winning tomorrow will not get the respect. It won't. You might get a little bit of praise and a few people coming out of the woodwork saying, okay, the Broncos are a thing if they blow them out. But we know that's not going to happen. The Packers are too good. He also says, David here again, thank you, pal. The media doesn't have a problem with the Broncos. It's Bo they have a problem with because they don't want to admit they were wrong. I understand what you're trying to say, that I would rephrase it and say Bo only adds insult to the injury, because the Broncos have traditionally always struggled. I mean, ever since I've been doing this, Ron, and it's my job to like write about what's going on, share my opinion, and then let alone the podcast stuff, the Broncos have always had to basically work/produce twice as much to get half the respect as the bigger market teams. And, Scott, his opinion is, look, it's because Denver's a smaller market team, Crimea River. Like, Falcons have to deal with it. Colts have to deal with it. Pick them smaller market teams, and it's no different. But then, Ron, you add in the Sean Payton thing. And yeah, you got the bounty gate. A lot of people still hold that against him big time. And people, he's kind of a jerk to media. He comes off that way. And, he snaps at reporters and he makes people feel dumb sometimes at the podium. Like, oh, that's your question? Like, really? Or, little things like that. A friend of mine, a dear friend who covered him in Dallas way back when he was a position coach and coordinator with the Cowboys pre-Saints. He goes, look, he's a great guy. He's a brilliant coach, but he's really hard to love. He's just hard to love. So you got that. Then, Ron, the key, and then I'm going to serve it back to you here, which is his point, which is a very salient one, the Bo Nix phenomenon. You break down your thoughts here for David.
Yeah, and that's where I wanted to go. David, again, thank you for coming in. It's the Bo Nix. You're right, David, and I've been saying this the whole time. I think there's always that problem of the Broncos being underdogs because, ever since Super Bowl 50, they haven't really done much. They haven't been winning. The quarterback carousel. So that's always going to be there. But now that they actually have a young quarterback in Bo Nix, but I think part of the problem is with that, they thought that he was just going to be this check down merchant, this game manager. And you're seeing Bo Nix is way more than that. And I think that's what they don't want to be wrong about, which, time and time again, Bo is proving that they're wrong. So again, Bo went to the right situation in Denver with Sean Payton, and they work well off each other. And again, they don't want to admit that they're wrong on their pre-draft assessment. That's really what it boils down to. And again, once they make it known in the playoffs, again, if they go all the way and finish the task, then that's when you'll start to see the respect come in. Because again, Chad, let's look at the roster. I mean, this team is set up well, and they're going to come off this Russell Wilson money after this season. So they've already extended players. I know they still have to make a few decisions on a few more pieces. But this is set up well not only for this year, but the next couple years as well. So again, let them hate. But Bo is doing a good job, in my opinion, so far of just proving them wrong.
No doubt. And that's part of why the vitriol is still there, is like, it's not just that he hasn't sucked. It's that he's been one of the great young quarterbacks in the NFL now for better part of 2 seasons when he was supposed to be a third-round guy at best, right? And last quarterback drafted in the first round in the class, blah, blah, blah. But look, man, Bo Nix, I don't understand. I can't relate to people on a personal level or a professional level, Ron, who don't just admit when they're wrong. Like, people think that by gaslighting, avoiding the subject, et cetera, that they're preserving their image, that they're somehow making themselves look better. But people can see through that. People perceive it, whether it's in a relationship or something like this in media. And you actually get way more appreciation, love, respect, trust from people in any given situation when you just admit when you're wrong. You man up, so to speak. You fall on the sword and you say, hey, that was on me. Extreme ownership. I was wrong. And then people now go, hey, this guy, I can trust him. He might not always be right. Who is? But I do know now that when he's wrong, he's going to say he's wrong, or she, etc. Most people don't get that, though. They're prideful. They're afraid of their image being shattered for one incorrect take. It's like, yo, dude, you're missing the forest for the trees. And that's the general media situation at large relative to Bo Nix. People holding on to those takes for dear life. David Youngkin, again, my dog. Thank you, pal. Every single quarterback is a game manager. And that's what they are. Some are better than others. Well, yeah, totally, dude. And this is a subject that was brought up earlier this week when Bo was it at the podium Wednesday or post game in Vegas? Either way, he was asked this week about, hey, talk about what it means to be a game manager, which I kind of thought was a little bit cheap that it was even asked of him. But
Mhm.
you guys have heard me say this before, and David, you're echoing my general view on this, which is, what was Tom Brady? What was Peyton Manning?
Manager.
What is Patrick Mahomes? What was John Elway? These are not just guys who manage the game. These are great managers of the game. Like they're getting their guys in and out of the huddle, right? And people lined up, balls coming down. Yeah, they're managing the game expertly. They're moving the chains. They're putting points on the board, etc. So the best quarterbacks in the NFL just so happen to also be the best game managers. But Ron, in our realm of football, game manager as a label is more used to describe the Kyle Ortons of the world, the guys who, they come in, they hold down the fort, they give you a plausible chance at competing, like John Fox circa 2011. Hey, coach, why don't you go with Tebow? Oh, well, we believe Kyle Orton gives us the best chance to win. Like, so they'll maintain that plausible, hey, get the job done, generally speaking, but they're not putting anyone on their back. They're not making highlight plays. They're not putting up a lot of points. They're not necessarily Ron, a guy you can point to and go, he's the problem, but he's certainly not doing what a franchise quarterback would do, and that is raise the performance and execution and overall play of everybody around him. So those are the two things you look for, and I'm going to serve it back to you. When it comes to the right quarterback, Ron, he has to be a great game manager. That's like a given. They have to be a great game manager. But are they a tide that raises all the ships around them? And I think through however many games it's been now, 30 games, right, of Bo Nix, regular season, Denver Broncos, it's pretty clear he is that tide. So that's what makes a franchise quarterback. Those two dynamics, elite game manager or excellent game manager, and raises the ships around him. Boom. And if it doesn't correspond, last thing here on, to the standings, then it's fool's gold. It's not actually a franchise quarterback, even if they're a great manager and even if they're putting up a lot of individual points and people are putting up yards and stuff around them. If it doesn't correspond to the standings, sorry, not a franchise guy.
Yeah, perfectly said. I don't have much to say to that. I mean, let's look at Bo Nix's 22-9, 22-9 record. As far as his class, leading it in touchdowns as well, as far as the quarterback class. And we call this a game manager, but again, it's taken so negatively. And it shouldn't be. Again, the best of the best Super Bowl winning quarterbacks have been game managers. But I will say this, to add on to what you said, two things. It's first, and Brady was the best at this, understanding what type of game we're playing. And that's what Bo Nix has done. Now, last year, we know there was not the presence of a run game. So a lot of last year fell on Bo Nix's arm.
Mm-hmm.
This year, you're seeing the run game kind of come on and Bo Nix kind of supporting it with the run game. So again, taking what type of game it is and kind of playing to the strength of kind of what's going on from a game plan perspective. And you're seeing that with Nix. The second thing is also taking what the defense gives you, and that's what Bo Nix has done too. So again, I think it goes back to trying to align their pre-draft assessment with some of the things that they're seeing on the film. And again, every quarterback throws behind the sticks. They mention that a lot when it comes to Bo Nix. Every quarterback throws behind the sticks, short passes, screens. So it's not just a Bo Nix thing. It's a league-wide thing. But they want to mirror what they saw at Auburn and Oregon to just solidify what their stance is when that's not the case. And they're not watching the film in its entirety to see how Bo Nix has evolved. So I do think Bo Nix has really come into his own with, understanding, letting the game come to him, letting it develop, letting plays develop, and also with the support of the run game, using his athleticism to make plays.
Exactly, dude. And well said. Yeah. And Blex, Troy Aikman, one of the greatest game managers that ever walked the
Yeah.
planet Earth. So, uh,
Yeah.
yeah, I mean, look, they say that some people say that wins are not a quarterback stat. If that's the case, why does the primary source of individual player and team stats on the internet, Pro Football Reference, okay, PFR. Why, when it shows, doesn't do it on any other position, but when it shows a quarterback stats, also shows their record as a starter that year. Sean Payton, it's his job to win, So even in the games like the first Vegas game in Denver, where Bo played very poorly, but still did just enough to win, Sean Payton, he doesn't want to hear it from the press questions about Bo because he did his job. We won the game. Like, he did what he's supposed to do. And so we cannot sleep on that. This is why, there are arguments about Tim Tebow. Was he really, could he have been a franchise guy? Did we give up too soon? Blah, blah, blah. John Elway, at the time I thought, well, hey, not to turn this, Ron, into a Tebow conversation, so I won't dwell on this, but at the time it was like, well, John Elway's he's a Hall of Famer. He's won Super Bowls. If he's saying we're better off going a different direction, let alone it being Peyton Manning, I mean, okay. Peyton Manning, Elway has said this, by the way, he was about the only out the Broncos had when it came to moving on from Tebow mania. Like, name another quarterback or quarterback situation the Broncos could have eased into that would have given them plausible deniability with the fan base on Tim Tebow. But my point here on Tebow, he won the games. So Bo Nix, dude, it's like DJ Khaled. All I do is win, win, no matter what. And that's what we're seeing. And that's one of the marks that of a franchise guy too here, Ron, that has me so stoked for the future is where the Broncos went 1-6 in these close games last year. You mentioned the lack of a running game, which is so ironic because look at the season Javante's having for the Cowboys and all that stuff, right? So you go, why? Yeah. But nevertheless, he did a lot of the heavy lifting himself last year on offense, Bo Nix. And still in those close games, the team as a collective, they just didn't quite have enough time on task together and experience in these big stake situations to come out on top. But each one of those setbacks they suffered in the one-score games, they learned a little something from that. Take from that one, learn from this one. Pull. So by the time you fast forward to this season, and I mean the first game that technically ended up, Ron, as a one-score win over the Titans. Then they lose back-to-back one-score games, and you're going, man, they just can't get over this one-score thing. And then it all came together, and they keep finding ways because what's the difference? I'm gonna screw this up. What's the difference between IQ and what, in other words, wisdom, right? Wisdom. There's a difference between, Ron, being smart and being wise, and it's experience. I guess that's the best way to put it. And truly smart people learn from their failures, and that's where wisdom comes into play. So we have from the top rope checking in, D-Dub in the house.
D-Dub, wow.
From Paradise with a top rope super chat. Thank you so much, my brother. Much love and respect to you.
Thank you.
I should be doing one of these for you, big dog. Thank you so much. He says, what's up, Chad, Ron, and MHH crew? Things I love to hear about Bo come from the locker room. Work ethic, competitiveness, dedication, smarts. He has the makeup of a great. Would not be surprised to see Bo take less money a la Elway and Brady in order to help those around him. And even Peyton did it to an extent in 2015. He took about 25% of his contract. They wanted him to convert it into roster bonuses and different bonuses to where he could get it all back if they win the Super Bowl. And he got it all back. So kudos to Peyton. But excellent points here, D-Dub. Ron, your thoughts for Dale?
Yeah, thank you, Dale, again for coming in with such a generous super chat. Much appreciated, my dude. And yeah, I agree, Dale. Every time you hear players in their interviews, pressers, they bring up these qualities when it comes to Bo, and you gotta love it. You want to see that from your potential franchise quarterback. And again, just hearing Bo himself, just how he's, very diligent, dedicated to the game, doesn't like to lose either. It's so good to hear. Like you saw clips of when RJ Harvey got his first touchdown, gave the ball to him. When Pat Bryant got his first touchdown, I believe it was in that Cowboys game, gave the ball to him. So, he loves playing the position and he loves his team. And, to your last point, yeah, I would not I would not be surprised either, when he's, due or trying to have, players stay on to kind of help those around him and maybe, continue the success of the team, maybe take a little bit less.
Yeah.
But yeah, these are great points here, Dale. Thank you again for coming in.
And fortunately, D-Dub, we got a few years till this becomes a question, But yeah, I mean, if Bo Nix continues on the course he's on and the Broncos continue to be one of these set and forget double-digit win teams, my dude's going to be getting one of those $500 million contracts type thing. Like it's in the cards, it's in the future, and God bless him. He's got a kid on the way. Stoked for the Knicks family and stoked for Broncos country. Quarterback solved after wandering the desert for how many years? 8 years, I guess it was. So D-Dub, thank you, brother, for your wisdom and insights. And of course, your support every time, brother. Really appreciate you. All right. Oh, the old man. We got the old man in the house. Pops, what's up, dude?
How you doing, Father Jensen?
Pops wants to know. Oh, he says still worried about Riley Moss, the old man. Yeah, so that's a hot button issue, Dad. That's a hot button issue. And my partner Zach Kelberman on the MHH pod, he says that one's take on Riley Moss is a measure of one's football IQ. It's a litmus test for football IQ. He's being, tongue in cheek when he says that, but it is, Ron, a very controversial subject because he has, if not this, I think the second, he might now be in the third most because he didn't have a penalty last week, but he's still the highest, most penalties for a defensive player in the NFL individually. Riley Moss this year, most of which are obviously PIs, but he has a defensive holding. He has an illegal contact that wiped a pick six off the board. And yet he's still, Ron, yes, he's given up some tutties this season, including last week. Back-to-back games, in fact, he gave up touchdowns. Washington to that insane catch by Burks. And then last week in the final closing minutes, that garbage time score. And you go, the penalties, the big play. But then you look at his actual metrics, Pops, and you say, wait a minute. He's the most targeted cornerback in the NFL, and yet he gives up the lowest catch rate percentage. So he does a lot right. The Broncos have a true stud number 2 corner if they can get him to stop with the penalties and stop panicking at the catch point. But I'm high on Moss. Do I worry about him? Sure, I'm with you there, Dad. I worry about Riley Moss. Anytime that ball, Ron, goes vertical and I see it's 21 trailing in coverage, I'm like all of you, I hold my breath. But what are your thoughts for the old man?
Yeah. Father Jensen, it's still a bit of a concern with Moss. I know he's been in there trying to clean up the technique, with the gloves, as you mentioned. But yeah, if the technique gets cleaned up, Chad, I think he could even be better. Because again, he's not playing poorly at all. It's just some of those crucial moments when he doesn't, turn around and look for the ball and he gets a little grabby, and it's like, you kind of have to clean up the technique there, my guy. Now, I will say this week is definitely going to be a challenge with these Green Bay receivers. We know PS2 can hold his own, maybe a mix of Christian Watson and Jalen Reed, but Moss covering maybe a Dontavian Wicks. And I know even with Luke Musgrave, matchups at times could be a challenge. So he's definitely going to get tested. They're definitely going to test him, but I just hope he can, again, clean up that technique. Just needs to clean up that technique. Yeah, perfect picture.
That's the quintessential Riley sitch, right?
That's the perfect picture. Yeah.
The ball's closing in. At least in this instance, Ron, he's got his head turned around.
Yeah.
But look at that, man. That's why he's like, hey, I'm going to put on boxing gloves in practice because then I can't grab. Yeah. And I think that's, it sounds a little ham-fisted, but it's actually a pretty smart way to work some of that out of his game. So, David, good to see you tonight, buddy. Thank you for your support, all those supers. You are a prince. We love you and appreciate you, big dog. But guys, we are out of time here. Boy, oh boy, Ron, does the time fly when you're having fun on the Orange and Blue View podcast. I guess we still have never worked out how we close things out. So let me just do a couple of shout outs here and some reminders, and then let you do the closeout. Okay. So let's do this. First things first, guys. You see Ron White's name on screen. You see my name right underneath it in white is our handle on Twitter, on X. So connect with Ron at Ron White NFL, myself at Chad and Jensen. While you're at it, make sure you follow our main X account at Mile High Huddle. Also, guys, you can get one of these fine hats or a t-shirt at mhhmerch.com. It's another great way to support us. The MHH Instagram has exploded this year, and it's no surprise because if you build it, like Field of Dreams, Ron, they will come. If you build it, they will come. And I had neglected Instagram for too long. Finally been committed to putting content on that bad boy all year long, and it has unsurprisingly exploded. But connect with us over there, guys. Awesome stuff being shared that's unique only to Instagram every single day at mile_high_huddle. Leave us a 5-star review on Apple Pods or Spotify if you get a second, guys. And don't forget, subscribe, like, share. Sharing this out there on your social media is the ultimate testimonial and shout out for MHH, because think about this, guys, out there in the world right now, millions of Broncos fans wandering blindly through the desert, completely oblivious and unaware that this community is waiting to embrace them. And you can help us reach those people by sharing this on your social media, Facebook, X, etc. And we'll grow and reach those like-minded Broncos fans. They just don't know. They're out there, just like you guys. So much love. Thanks for having me tonight, Ron. Had a blast. And last thing, and then I'm serving it to you. Shout outs to the superstars, the supporters, the members helping us keep the lights on tonight in reverse order. D-Dub, top rope, brother, so generous. David Youngkin, multiples. Shannon, multiples. Chris Parr in Australia. Tucson Phil on Facebook. D Crom early on, and the Papa Bear before we even went live. Love you guys. I'll see you tomorrow for the gut reaction. Can't wait.
Yes, again, guys, thank you all for tuning in tonight. We greatly appreciate all of your questions, comments, support. Again, hope you guys enjoy the game tomorrow. Should be a good one. The Broncos are definitely going to get tested. We'll see how they play and respond in this playoff game. I think there's more of a playoff game here tomorrow. But again, guys, thank you all for tuning in. And until next time, have a great night and go Broncos.